think everything's up and running.
Okay.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. Today we've got I don't know if the word exciting
I'm exciting, thank you.
An exciting live show where we are going to talk about mental health. And this isn't part of Books About Bipolar, which I know some people have asked me about, just a general chit chat. To check in on how everybody that you see in front of you is doing, how some of you guys are doing, because I know it's been a really tough time for a lot of people. And we thought maybe just talking about it would help other people relax with it, open up a little bit, and just get some help if maybe they're not quite sure where to go or what to do or what they're feeling. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves. We're going across the top and then across the bottom. So we'll introduce Victoria.
Hello, I'm Victoria. My channel is What Victoria Read. Just to give you a bit of introduction to me, I guess. I live in the west of England. I'm in my early 30s, and when I was 21, I had a breakdown. And I live with generalized anxiety disorder as a general life thing. So I talk a lot about mental health on my channel. I usually weave it in with blogs and stuff, and I try and be kind of upfront about how I'm feeling. I just think it's really important to talk about it. And when I was in the thick of it when I was younger, I think it would have helped me a lot to see other people talking about it. So yeah, I'm a big one for talking about mental health, and I've got a few I don't want to say tips and tricks, but ways of coping that have come in handy over the last 12 months. So yeah, that's pretty much me, and that's why I'm here. See if I can help. That's pretty much it.
They're very good reasons.
So my name's Ashley. My channel is called Ashley Faith. I usually talk about body positivity and sort of university life and student stuff and some other things sometimes. And I don't have any diagnosed mental health condition, but I think there is one. And I, for a long time, told myself that I wasn't bad enough to need help, and not good. And I have quite a lot of unprocessed trauma that has definitely resurfaced since the lockdown. Because you're just sitting in your room the whole time, and I was in lockdown living alone for the first 6 months, so it was not a good time. And I wanted to do this because I think it's really important to show people that even if you haven't got a diagnosed mental health condition, that you can still have problems that you need to get help with. Because I know a lot of people, me included, feel like they're not bad enough and they're taking the limited resources away from people who need them more. And it's something that I struggled with before. So yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Caris. My channel is Caris's Corner. And sort of to reiterate what everyone said, mental health is a topic that I'm really passionate about talking about. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety about 2 years ago, but I guess similar to what Ashley was saying, for a long time, I sort of thought I didn't reach out to get help with that because I thought that I wasn't bad enough. I didn't deserve to put myself out there and get that help. But since sort of doing that and accepting it, it's something that I've tried to be a lot more open about because I think it could help other people. And topics that I'm sort of particularly interested in, I guess, are stress and loneliness. I did a video about loneliness on my channel quite recently, because I think that in particular is something that with younger people isn't really talked about enough. So yeah, that's me, I guess.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't expect this to go so deep, but I think it is important.
I am an oversharer, so if you think I am talking too much about trauma and shit, just tell me because I don't have a filter.
Oh yeah. No, I'm the same. I added Caris to a group chat, and then all of a sudden she was hit with everyone's overshare, and she was like, "Oh, okay, guess we're friends now."
Yeah.
So I'll say a little bit about the people who maybe have come from other people's channels. So I was first diagnosed with a mental health condition when I was 17 with depression. And then when I was 19, I went to the doctors after I'd first been prescribed antidepressants, and they triggered a minor psychotic episode, and I ended up having to go to hospital. I got discharged, wasn't kept in, but they started thinking, actually, maybe you have bipolar disorder. And then looking into my family history, there is a history there. I then went kind of into myself, was like, no, I have seen, how people with bipolar, suffer. I used to use that word a lot, suffer, and just was in complete denial. And then when I was 23, after many highs, many lows, I was then diagnosed again by a different psychiatrist in a different city, at which point I realised maybe I should actually, accept this diagnosis and work towards being able to manage it, which is why bipolar is something I talk about a lot on my channel, because a big part of the denial that I had about it was to do with how I had seen it depicted in films and books and television as just kind of like this crazy person. So that's why I think it's really important to be open and honest, because I think you need to see all different sides, and realize that, like you guys are saying, you might think I'm not that bad, but everybody's mental health is different. Everyone's illnesses are different, and everyone's recovery is different. Everybody's treatment is different, and I think the more people talk about it, the easier it'll be for people to get that help. So yeah, there's my background. We've got some people in the chat, which is great. I never really get this many chats. Oh, and I've never talked about how I got diagnosed with bipolar before as well. So yeah.
Oh, I can't see the chat.
If you go on chat, there's like at the bottom. What's the bottom of my screen?
It's because I'm on my phone. Then
Oh, no, I'm on my phone too. So if you go at the bottom, it says mic cam mic chat, and then there's our private chat, and then the comments.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it, Shah? When you talk about how you got diagnosed, like there could be somebody watching who doesn't know how it works, or it just helps them hear you talk about it and normalize it. Yeah, because that's definitely, because like I said, I was really ill in my early 20s, and now 12 years later, because I'm just that old, and looking back at it now, like it would have really helped me seeing other people talk about it, which is why I'm always really conscious. And I think the other thing for me, because I'm mostly better, or I'm functioning better than I was then, so I think I appear high functioning, and a lot of the time I am, but not always. So that's why I always say it if I'm having a rough time, because otherwise people get this impression of me as someone who used to have mental health issues, and that's not the case. It's all the time. It's just at varying levels. Yeah, so I think that's why it's so important to talk about it, and talk about it repeatedly, so that it's just more normal.
Yeah, because I know my type of bipolar is hereditary, so I get it from one of my parents, and that is kind of what scared me and put me in denial, because theirs is a lot different to mine, and I just thought, oh, that means I'm going to follow on that same path. So and they didn't get diagnosed until they were a lot older, until they were in, I think, their 40s, maybe the 30s. But if I had just had, if I had that as my only experience of mental health, I think I just never would have asked for help. I just never would have gone to the doctor. Yeah. And I also obviously had the trips when I was younger where a doctor would say, oh, you're just a teenage girl, you'll get over it.
No, please stop doing that to teenage girls, because they're girls.
Yeah. Maybe it's your hormones.
Yeah.
Not everything is hormones.
Yeah, I know. Because that's the thing, I feel like, I'm not going to get into it too much, but like the breakdown that I had been coming for a long time.
Mhm.
And I feel like if someone had noticed what was going on or had worked out what was happening, that might have been prevented. So yeah, I hate when I hear people who are like, "Oh, my doctor just dismissed it as hormones." And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it's not necessarily just what even is just hormones. Like
which one?
Yeah.
Like there's many.
Yeah,
They do a wide range of things.
Mm.
And even if it is just hormones, why does that mean that I don't deserve help?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm clearly not managing with these hormones.
Like, even if it is hormones, and if someone needs help, like help them. Yeah. I don't know, just a crazy idea out there to put out there.
This is the thing as well, because I'm also a step parent, and I think for some parents it can be scary to think about your kid having an issue with their mental health. And if you're not someone who is already like mental health aware, it can be a really scary kind of area. I guess maybe some parents a bit more like just dismiss it as hormones and it will just go away if we just ignore it, which obviously doesn't work. I can kind of see how that happens.
But it's like the same with like doctors in general, and as a fat person it's even worse. People are like, just lose weight and every problem will go away. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's not how it works at all. My trauma will not go away if I lose weight, and maybe the process of that would actually make my trauma worse, perhaps. I don't know. Not to go into
and having somebody say that to you repeatedly.
It's like, that's why I don't get help for anything. Because every time in the past I did, the problem we went to the doctors for was either my weight or it was brought up as a reason why it was happening. And it's like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Like, you can see from my medical history that I go to at least 4 appointments a year about my weight. I'm currently a 9-year-old. Please diagnose this weird skin thing and do something about it, please.
Get some help. I think the chat, I'm just gonna put a caveat. I'm not gonna share things in the chat like I normally would, because I think this is a bit more of a personal one. And yes, I know people are making public comments, but I think putting them on the screen is I don't know, just I don't feel comfortable with that, and I don't want other people to feel like they can't comment because that might happen. But there is a good chat in there about, have people who have gone to the doctors and had similar responses, and I think it's quite scary how like prevalent that is.
Yeah, and I think it just, that sort of narrative in society, like as you were saying, it just like puts people off going to get help. I think it's part of the reason why it took me so long, because all my life before that, so I was like 21, 22 when I went and spoke to someone, but all my life before that, it's like so easy to just brush it off as you were saying, like, oh, I'm a teenager, or then it's like, oh, it's uni's meant to be stressful, this is how I'm meant to be feeling.
Why should uni be like, I get like exactly. Uni being a lot of work, but why does it need to be unnecessarily stressful?
Yeah, it shouldn't.
No, but then to me, like the problems with people going to the doctor and stuff, that makes me want to talk about mental health even more, because then if we're not going to get support or adequate support from, say, doctors and stuff and people in authority, then my brain goes, okay, well then we need to work out how to help each other. And that's why I bang on about it all the time, because I just think if I'm talking about it and one person sees it and it helps them feel less on their own, or like they can reach out to me or whatever, then job done. That's good. And also it helps me as well to like, I'm pretty vocal as a human, so talking about it helps my brain as well.
I think it's also like the way that people like view mental health treatments in general. Anecdote. So when I was younger, I basically went to the doctor about my weight for this whole thing. It was like this whole stressful thing, and it wasn't nice. And I remember like I used to have like hysterical breakdowns when I would get a letter in the post, because I knew it was an appointment letter. Like, it was really bad. And so I was at one appointment, and I was having a breakdown in front of the doctor, and the doctor was like, you know, she doesn't calm down, we'll just have to give her to a psychiatrist or something like that. And to like a 9-year-old, first of all, it okay, as an adult now, yeah, okay, maybe I did need psychological help. But the only reason why I needed psychological help was doctors treating me badly. So like having a flippant comment like that is not going to make me stop crying.
Also, why was that?
And it stigmatized it for me for ages.
Yeah.
Because like then I was like, well, I'm not to use the word crazy, but like that's what I thought. I was like, well, I'm not crazy. Why do I need to see someone? And then it was stigmatized in me for so long until like last year I had sort of like an epiphany moment about this like one appointment that I had, because it was like really, you know, stuck in my memory. It's like, why say things like that to children as well? Like a kid, like a 9-year-old.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the silver linings come out of the lockdown situation is that, because like I said, I've got an 11-year-old stepson, and I'm also training to be a teacher, so I've been working in the schools. And one of the good things I have seen that has come out of lockdown is that the schools that I've been into and where my son goes are a lot more aware of their kids' mental health at the moment, and I'm seeing quite a lot of support coming in, and you know, lessons on feelings and mental health, and especially with the little ones, like the younger ones, teaching them how to identify how they're feeling, because sometimes they don't have the vocabulary to say I feel anxious, it's just I feel bad. And it's trying to help them. So it's one of the like few things that have kind of come out of the last 12 months that I've been seeing, is that the schools seem to be better, like getting better, and they're still not great, but getting better at supporting. Although somebody's just said in the chat, and I agree, like the total lack of mental health support at university level is really bad.
It's like if you want students to like perform well and make you look good, it's in your interests to provide support. Like mentally healthy students are going to be better students. So why not help them and make your reputation better because your students are better? Like logic, like even from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
And what baffles me even more with universities is how inconsistent it is across every single university.
Why isn't there a law about it?
Because I personally had a fantastic experience with the mental health services at my undergrad university. So when I first went to my doctor with my depression, his exact words were, oh, well, you're not going to kill yourself, are you? And I was like, well, I feel like I'm here telling you that I actually might feel like that. And he was really bad. This was the guy who put me on the antidepressants right away, without looking into my family background at all. But then when I went to the student doctor, they were wonderful. They listened to me. As soon as they heard about my family history, they started looking into actually, you know what, maybe it's a bit deeper than that. And they were the ones who referred me to the first psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar. And I very vividly remember going in and saying, oh, haha, they think I've got bipolar. And I thought they'd go, no, don't be silly. Because I always felt it was one of those that is hard to get a diagnosis, or you know, people think, oh, you're just being a drama queen kind of thing. But they were really, really good. That was my first university. And then the uni I'm at now, they've been, I've heard some awful stories about how students are being treated at universities. Like
it's like really mixed bag, like experiences. Like one of my best friends who suffered with anorexia and bulimia and is also got OCD. Her experience of our university mental health team was really bad. Like they would have appointments in the hallway.
Wow.
And when I had a 6-week block of appointments at the beginning of lockdown, like it wasn't because of lockdown, but it just happened to be then. And the therapist was great, but it was 6 weeks. Like, so you just unpacked all of this trauma and then just left me with it. I'm just here like
Yeah.
a year later, like on a NHS waiting list because I have this unpacked trauma that is like worse than it just being like packed in my brain because I don't know what to do with it because it's just like all floating around in my head, and I'm like, I could do with some help into how to process this now that I know that it's there. Like, it's not good to just have like things you didn't even know like about before, and now you don't know what to do with them. It's like, what was the point?
Almost like when you move house and everything is in your boxes and you put them in the room and you're like, right, I've got all this stuff. Where do I start? I don't know what I'm doing. And you're stressing about that. And then you start opening the boxes and taking everything out, but you're not putting it away. So you're just emptying everything into the room. And you're like, right, okay, now I can see what I have got, but what do I do? Where, like, was this a better way to process it? Or was that a better way to process it? What should have happened?
So now I've got all of this like explanation of like the trauma and why it like sort of led me to do things that like worsened my situation in ways, and it's like, oh great, good. So now I know that this trauma probably actually led to this trauma, but now what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
So maybe that takes us nicely on to the next part then, which is about how you recognize your signs. Like, how do you see that you're not coping?
I think for me personally, like I was living with my friends last year, and I would have bi-weekly breakdowns. Like, it was this thing, and I'd like cry on the kitchen floor and then like be fine again. And I thought I was like, that's fine, until like I had this massive one. And I was like, this is not okay. So that's when I applied to the university for the mental health support. And then I was on a waiting list from like November until February. And then I eventually got like an assessment appointment. And then I had like my proper appointment in March. And then lockdown happened. And I was going through therapy, and I was realizing like there was so much stuff that I'd never thought of as trauma before that impact me in ways that, like, for example, like I have some like stuff that happened that make me like not ask for help when I need things like money, and then I get myself into a worse financial position because I didn't ask for help when the situation happened, and then I'm stuck in this like really deep hole. Then I have to go to my parents like, I'm in a complete mess. And then that's what made me realize that I actually need like continuous support, because I do this a lot, and it's a pattern that's happened like since I've been an adult, quote unquote, when I have to, it's like, my parents are there all the time to help me, and I have to actually ask for help, and I don't do it. And that's what made me realize lockdown as well, being alone for 6 months really highlights where you're not okay.
So do you think you're still learning your signs? Do you think you'd be able to see things coming, or?
I don't think I can, but I think my boyfriend can.
Okay.
But yes, it's getting a bit more obvious, but still, I'm a very overly emotional person as well. And once I get like in like an upset state about whatever it is, I can't get myself out of it. And it like just, I explain it like, those big plastic bubbles that you run on water in, or like down a hill or whatever. Yeah. It's like I'm in one of them, and it's filled up with smoke, like dark black smoke, and I can't breathe, and I can't see, and I can't get out of it. And like logically, I know that like I just have to pull the zip, and then it will go. But I can't find where the zip is because I can't see and I can't breathe. Yeah. And I don't know whether that's a panic attack, but that's something that needs to be dealt with, because I do damage to my relationships with people when I'm in that state, because I scream and I shout, and they don't understand where I'm coming from, because I can't breathe in the metaphor, so I can't explain what's going on, and people just think I'm overreacting because I can't explain what's going on, if that makes sense. Yeah, it just does damage all around, and it's not good.
Yeah, because I think I'm quite good at recognizing my signs, And everybody, one of the things I really hate is people telling me, "Oh, you handle it well." Like when people find out that I have bipolar, like, "Oh, I would never have guessed you handle it well." I'm like, "Yeah, because I've learned how to handle it well." Like that doesn't mean I'm magically better, like a lot of people seem to think. And I'm good at recognizing my signs. I know for me, like it's my eating, it's my sleeping, it's becoming a recluse, it's my anxiety in everyday tasks such as driving, which I have massive anxiety about on its own. But if I feel particularly low, I won't even drive to the supermarket, which is one of my comfort drives. But I don't really notice how bad it is until it's too late. So for the last couple of months, I've really, really struggled. And I've said to people, like, I'm really struggling. But I never know what to ask for in return. And I can always pick, oh, but I have this one thing that's keeping me going. And then if I lose that one thing, I just fall apart because I haven't figured out how to not rely. I don't think rely is the right word, but I haven't figured out how to address those other things and how to stop, and particularly in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like when my usual go-to is, right, texting the girls, let's go out for dinner. You know, or go to the cinema by myself. Sometimes just like doing something independently make me feel better as well. Whereas there is none of that. Like almost feels like all of my support has gone.
I think for me, when I'm busy, I just feel better because there's no time to sit and like think. And I don't know whether that's like the best way to deal with things. But when I'm busy, like before the pandemic, when I was in my final year of university working, I had a long distance relationship, and I was living with my friends. There was always something to do. Like there was never a time where there was nothing that I could do. And I was also living in London, so like there was always something to do. I didn't have to sit in my thoughts. And then I had to move out of my friend's like flat, and then I was living in a precarious living situation. And then the pandemic started, and I was alone for 6 months, and I'm like the most extroverted person you probably will ever meet. And then I was like, oh shit, wow, there's lots to be thinking about actually.
Yeah.
I didn't
And then I like recessed into my twilight phase because like I didn't have anything else.
Yeah, a lot of people went for nostalgia, didn't they?
Yeah.
Nostalgia like really came back. And I don't think I realised, I would have always said that I was an introvert. And I started to say that I was an extroverted introvert, like the last 2 years or so. But
There's a word for it. I think it's like ambivert.
Yeah, ambivert, I think.
Ambivert. And now I'm convinced I'm just fully an extrovert. I've just realised the energy I get from other people.
See, I would definitely consider myself to be an introvert. So what you were like saying about being busy and stuff, I thought that was how I dealt with things before, but actually, as like horrible as the pandemic has been, and obviously I wouldn't want to go through it again, and I was by myself for a long time and that wasn't great, but in some ways having the time to actually just reflect.
I can't do it.
Yeah, but that
like I can reflect, but if I have to reflect on my own, if I have to be on my own, like it's really bad. Like even when I was living with my best friends, we'd have like hour-long conversations in the kitchen. It's like 3 a.m. We've been talking all night, and the second I go into my bedroom to go to sleep, I feel like, oh shit, I can't even like lie in my own bed to go to sleep alone. Like that's how I am. So like the pandemic was really bad.
I think I'm really good at reading my signs now, which is just time and practice. So I also know the things that are going to make me worse, which doesn't necessarily mean I won't do them, but I can kind of usually preempt what's going to be more difficult. So for me, I kind of always explain generalized anxiety disorder as I just have a lower pain threshold when it comes to stress and anxiety. So things that wouldn't cause somebody else anxiety can be more difficult for me, which, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean these days I won't do them. It just means that the threshold is lower. So yeah, I'm pretty good at noticing when I'm getting bad. Usually this big sign for me is when I get irritable, because I'm not an irritable person generally. I'm a pretty calm, friendly person, or try to be. When I find myself getting irritated by other people, that's a massive sign that that something's not right, and that I need to take a step back and just have a bit of time, because I'm also definitely an introvert. And when I'm getting irritated, that's always when I'm like, okay, I need to like put my phone down, or like just not see anyone for a couple of days or whatever, and just have a bit of time. But yeah, I think I am good at noticing my signs, but I think that only comes with practice, and it's just one of those things that over time you kind of get used to yourself. And also kind of, like I said, you learn the things that are going to be not necessarily triggers, but just more difficult than other things. So like one thing for me that used to get really bad panic attacks in public spaces. So not for, it hasn't happened for years, but like the supermarket was always a big one for me that I used to just hate having to deal with. And one thing I noticed during the pandemic is that little bit of like that little voice in the back of my head going, oh, I don't really want to do this, has started to come back, which I think is tied in with the fact that obviously pandemic, and I've got to wear a mask, and I can't see because my glasses fog up, and it is more stressful for everybody. But it's just that little twinge in the back of my brain's like, oh, we don't like this. But I'm lucky enough to have, you know, coping strategies to deal with that kind of thing. But I think it is just something that comes over time as you kind of learn your brain. Yeah,
I think it's something that I've definitely got a lot better at as well. Irritability definitely is a big one for me, and like when I start to sort of step back and almost push people away, and it's always the people who you are closest to and who you know are trying to look out for you the most, but that's what I sort of tend to do. I think I tend to like catastrophize, is that the right word? Like I'll get really stressed and then I just can't see a way out of it, and then it'll just spiral and spiral and spiral until one tiny thing that probably I could solve in like an hour has become this huge massive thing. But I think now, because I start to recognize that, like as I'm starting to do that, it's like getting easier to sort of deal with it and like face it head on rather than letting it become a big thing. But it's still something that I'm like learning to deal with better. And also like what we were saying before about hormones and stuff, not to be like TMI, but I definitely have noticed a pattern that like if I'm due on my period, my mood is like so much lower. So like what we were saying before, why should hormones just be automatically like, people react like, oh, it's hormones, but yeah, it is hormones sometimes.
But like that doesn't make it any better. Like that is it's still bad.
Yeah, and I think you can tell the difference when it's hormonal as well. Like for me,
think it just feels like out of nowhere, whereas like other things just it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, like it's because of this. But hormones is like, it feels like your body is just like upset, and I'm like, why are you upset? What is going on? Oh wait, my period is due.
Great. Thanks, Mother Nature.
It's really hard though when you have a really irregular period like me, because it's like it just happens randomly, and I'm like.
A couple of questions have come up in the chat to do with coping. I will put these ones up because they're questions. So when you notice the signs, what do you do to reset to yourself?
Cry. That sounds like really morbid, but for me, crying is the most cathartic thing. Nothing else works. I can't cry on my own either. It has to be in front of someone. That sounds really weird because I know a lot of people cry in private, but for me, it doesn't feel like it's finished until somebody else sees me crying. I don't know whether that's like a narcissistic thing. I don't know. But like I've never been able to like cry alone because it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it's permanent enough, if that makes sense, because no one has seen it, and it doesn't feel like it's out, because it's still just I have knowledge of me crying, and that's it, you know. I don't know.
It's almost like you already know you're upset, so why are you crying to yourself?
It's
But
like
if you're with somebody else, then they can see I'm struggling, and you can see that somebody's there to support you too.
I'm also a public crier as well. Anywhere and whenever I feel like it's necessary. That I don't know. I just feel like even if it's like one tear, it just feels like, and then I can carry on until like the next episode, which used to be every 2 weeks. Quite predictable. But yeah, crying. Just give it a go. That's. I don't know why there's such a stigma around crying.
There shouldn't be.
Like it's
all.
your body. It's literally your body's way of getting the emotion out. Like that's why we do it. So what? Like why? Crying is so good. I love it. Love it so much.
Particularly with men, I find men have a real. I did try and get a more diverse group of people, so I'm very aware our experiences are all very white woman. But I think men in particular are having a hard time at the minute because they just don't, even one of my close friends recently, we were talking about men crying and men being upset, and he made a comment about it just needs to man up and get over it. And this was somebody who I thought was a bit more open. Like I used to go to him a lot about my own mental health and situations, and then he made the comment about that, and I was just sat there thinking, like, some of your friends, your male friends, are really struggling right now and are not talking about it, and maybe this is why. But I think crying, I will almost force somebody to cry. If somebody
I'm a crying stan. I'm a crying stan.
Yeah, like, let it out. I can
just
see
cry.
It out.
Like, do I need to punch you? Because I will.
You will feel better, 100%.
Thing is, it's funny. I don't cry very much. I don't tend to cry when I'm sad. I only ever cry if I'm really angry. Like that's usually how I can tell if I'm really angry. And then that's annoying because if I'm trying to like have a row with someone, I just start crying and then they think I'm sad. Okay, I'm not. I'm just really pissed off.
Side note, that video of Taylor Swift where she's crying about wanting to be politically open and her like manager and her dad is like, no, look what happened to the Dixie Chicks, and then she's crying but she's still like having like the argument that she's having. I'm like, crying can happen in arguments and it's fine. Like it doesn't mean that you're arguing is bad. It just means that you care.
Yeah. I think with Shannon's question with the reset, I think for me, I will step away from social media is always the first thing that I do because I just need to take a breath and work out what's going on. And I'm more of I will tend to sit and write a list of the things that are making me feel anxious, because usually when I feel bad it's because I'm feeling anxious. That's usually what's going on. So I will literally write down a list of the things that are bothering me, and then I will talk to someone about it, usually my poor husband, who like instead of crying I'm more of like a it's kind of I hate this phrase, but like verbal diarrhea, like just at him, like this is everything that's stressing me out and I just need to get it all out of my head. And then he's really good at just listening, and then we'll try and work out how to deal with it. So it feels like I'm not dealing with it on my own, although usually, honestly, the poor man needs a medal because it's usually a very long monologue by the end of which I've worked it out myself. But usually just the act of talking it out I find so helpful. And then I will go into full-on self-care mode, which I think we're going to talk about self-care in a bit, but I will just go very heavily into I am doing self-care for the next 3 hours or whatever, and I'll kind of like work out what's wrong and then put it aside, self-care in a really like focused way, and then the following day go back to that list and work out what I'm going to do about each thing. And that's usually how I reset myself, because I just need it's usually I just need to like step back and take a breath. And I'm definitely, like I was saying earlier, definitely introverted, and I just need that little bit of space where there's like nobody needing something from me. Where I can just be for a bit. And it's because, I am very much, it's weird, I am introverted, but I have a lot of people that I'm in touch with all day, every day. And, we're chatting back and forth, and some people need support and other people need cat gifts or whatever. So I'm always quite busy. Sorry if I was boring you.
Sorry.
But I definitely get to a point where it's like I'm almost like touched out, and I'm just like I just need to like not have anyone need anything from me just for like 3 hours. So yeah, that's definitely how I reset, and it works. It does work every time. So far.
I'm a very big believer in that you can't work through how you're feeling until you've figured it out. And I think writing it all down is the best way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like, I feel really sad and I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Or this situation's making me really uncomfortable and I'm not sure why. And a lot of people will just kind of push that aside and get on with it. I think it's really important to actually figure out why do you feel like that and what can you do to change it.
Yeah, although I would say sometimes I'm just anxious, sometimes I just am. And there's no logical thing that's causing that. I just am. And sometimes I think part of what I've learned is sometimes I just have to sit with that. And I just have to manage that feeling, which, you know, is when I will do self-care stuff. And sometimes I just have to wait for it to pass and remind myself that it will pass. Because I think when I was first diagnosed, I used to beat myself up if I couldn't find a reason. And sometimes it's not logical, it just is. And learning that was quite helpful for me, that realization. Like 9 times out of 10, there is a logical reason. There's something I can do about it, and I will do that. But sometimes I'm just anxious, and it's just how I am. And kind of, it's uncomfortable, but I kind of got used to just sitting with it and waiting for it to go away. Yeah.
I think Anna, oh no, that's not the one I wanted to share. Sorry, I was getting carried away with the normal people comment. Anna asking how you've altered your coping mechanisms since the pandemic. So what are your self-care techniques at the minute?
I think we were talking about regression and nostalgia. That's one thing that when I didn't have anyone to cry in front of, I just like went head first into another Twilight phase, which, you know, we can talk about the problems with Twilight and Stephanie Meyer, whatever, but genuinely it helped me so much because there was like something to do, people to talk to about it. I made a fan page and everything. There was this whole thing, and I just having something to like be like hyper focused on was like the thing that I needed, because I there was nothing else to do. Like I had something in my brain all the time that was going, that if I needed a break from how I was feeling, it was there, and I didn't have to like find the energy to like do something, if that makes sense. Because like when you're feeling bad, you don't have the energy to like decide what to do. Like if you need, like, if you know, if you're bored and you're feeling sad, when you're feeling sad, you don't want to like decide what to do. So then you just carry on feeling bored and sad, and there's nothing, you know, to, you know, distract yourself. So yeah, Twilight. But now it's sort of like gone. Like I don't have, like, not that I don't have any interest, but like it's like back to the minimal interest it was before the pandemic.
Do you think that's changed since you've moved in with your boyfriend?
Yeah.
So
I'm not on my own anymore.
So yeah, you're not on your own.
Coping mechanism that you constructed for the pandemic.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one massive thing that I've learned after the first few weeks of the pandemic is I stopped reading the news, because I'm someone who, like Karis was saying earlier, like my brain catastrophizes. So I see some, you know, what's presented as a fact on the BBC website, or some percentage or whatever, and then my brain immediately works out exactly what the worst possible outcome is, and that just stays in my brain. So I have stopped even looking at the news. I look every other day, just to see what's going on, but I know full well that if something major happens, somebody else will tell me if I need to know. And yeah, because I was getting into a bit of a kind of obsessive consumption of all the news, and it's all negative all the time, and that was then obviously affecting my brain, which doesn't take a genius to work out that would happen. And since I've stopped, I feel so much better, because it's just like
myself.
I would, if you can wean yourself off, I would really recommend it, because like
the worst was Twitter, and I don't really go on Twitter, but I still have that urge, and I'm like, I can't control you, please control yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
found that in the coming in as well, and then I was like obsessively checking worldometers for like the numbers everywhere, and then I realized the other day I was like, I've not checked that for about 6 months, and it just stopped. It wasn't even a conscious decision. So I think you do get to a point where naturally you just stop caring as much. Maybe that's not the right word, but you just naturally.
Well, I just know that it's not healthy for me to take it in. I know it's bad. The situation's bad. That's all I need to know. Like someone will tell me when it's like probably Twitter will be the one to tell me when it's over, because I just don't look at news stuff, official news stuff. And I also really carefully curate my Twitter feed as well, because it's up to me to decide what I take in. And if what I'm taking in is bad for me, then I need to do something about that. So yeah, whenever anyone says to me like, oh, how are you coping, I'm always like, I'm not reading the news, because it's just grim all the time. There's never anything good. And so I've stepped right back from that. So if the pandemic finishes, if someone could like let me know, that'd be great, because I won't be online.
Yeah, I think I'm quite similar, and like what Shah was saying about you get to a point where you just almost accept it. And I think I went through a phase of feeling quite guilty because I wasn't having this like reaction anymore to hearing all this like rubbish news all the time. But then I don't know, I just have to tell myself like if I have to take a step back from it to look after myself, then that's what I've got to do. But with other like coping mechanisms, for Anna's question, for me, productivity is like a massive thing. If I don't feel like I'm being productive, then I will just downward spiral. And it was quite difficult at the start of the pandemic with going from like, I got put on furlough, so going from like working quite a busy job to then having all this time all of a sudden. So what I did is, and I don't think this will work for everyone, because it depends on, I guess, sort of how you cope with things. But for me, I like to make a to-do list, even if it's just things like have your breakfast, have a shower, like, and I put things on it that I have already done or that I know that I'm about to do, so that I can tick them off and have like a sense of achievement. And then just like general self-care, like crafts, stuff like that, has helped as well.
One of my current favorite things to do is to watch really old episodes of Gogglebox, because it's one of my like, I don't watch a lot of TV, but it's like one of the TV shows that I watch. And if you watch old ones before the words like Brexit and Trump and COVID were a thing, it's like such a like a it's just like a more innocent time. So I tend to have quite a lot of baths. I have a bath most evenings, just because the kind of routine of it is helpful for me to like wind, especially working from home. It's kind of that like transition from like working to being relaxed at home. So I find having a bath is really helpful for that. Going for a walk and then having a bath, and then watching Gogglebox in the bath is just like, there's no pandemic in these four walls right now. It's just me relaxing and watching some really, really old show where they don't talk about Brexit, COVID, Trump, any of that. And it's just like, just for like half an hour, it's like, it doesn't exist in here. It's fine. So yeah, that's another one that is like when I'm like, when I feel like I'm hitting a red zone, I'm like, right, I'm gonna have a bath and just switch off a bit.
Yeah. I really miss baths. When I moved in, I think I moved July, I had a bath, and now I don't. And I really, really miss having a bath. So since July, I've had like 2 baths. No, I've had 1 bath. I've had 1 bath, and it was on my birthday. And I'm back at my dad's now, and he has a bath, but it's really small. And I'm trying to toy with the idea of, do I have a bath? Is it going to relax me, or am I going to get stressed out that my whole body doesn't fit in?
Yeah.
But baths are such a lovely way to just unwind, and I miss them so much.
Yeah, it's definitely something I need some days. It's just like I just need it, that like ritual of running the bath and then just shutting the door, being on my own, because it's a tricky one, because like I've been really lucky through the pandemic that I wasn't furloughed, and I live with my husband and my son, but equally it means like my house is never silent ever. Like, so just being able to shut the door for half hour or whatever, and like I said, not having anyone need anything, it's just like, need to be alone. And yeah, that's nice for me. But I think also for me, reading is so important, which I knew pre-pandemic. I've always been a big reader, but since the pandemic, like last year, I read 191 books last year, which is ridiculous. Like the previous year, I read something like 80 books, which is still a lot, but like the jump was just massive. And yeah, I was at home more and all that stuff. But when I was thinking about it, I'm convinced it's become so important for my mental health. And like I need that time every day to kind of sit and be somewhere else.
This is my first hug with my sister since.
Oh.
Oh. I'll come to you when I'm done. Okay. I need to like. Thank you.
Oh, I miss hugging people.
Oh, I know.
Happy for you.
Yeah. Oh.
I can't cry.
No, cry.
Let it out. That's what we've learned.
I think
we can keep going.
I was just going to say, I think with reading, one thing that I've really found that is helpful is watching read with me videos or like live sprints of people reading. It's like having that time for reading and feeling like there's someone there with you, so you're not alone, but also being alone at the same time.
Yeah,
it's really helped me, I think.
That's good. I use a lot of like ambient noise videos because I've just said like my house is never silent. I was complaining about it, but I actually can't read in silence. So I have a lot of like the ambient noise where it's like wind through the trees or whatever. I have those on quite a bit when I'm reading. I actually find sprinting a bit stressful, so I don't tend to use sprints because I get too competitive, so it's not actually relaxing. But I can see like other people would enjoy it, and like the read with me videos, I like those as well. Yeah, so I can see why it'd be useful. I'm just too competitive. It's annoying. I annoy myself. It's like nobody cares.
The ambient noise room videos, whatever they're called, are something I've discovered in the last like month or so, and they have been so helpful for like either reading, or I find them really good for studying as well. When I'm like, right, I need to write an essay, and I can kind of trick my mind into being like, right, you just write until the end of this music.
Yeah,
the music is like 8 hours long, so it's not going to end anytime soon. And then before I know it, I've done so much work.
Yeah, it's definitely good.
Yeah, I also find that the main thing for me is cooking a good meal. I think that's the best thing that I can do for myself, especially because I've got a history of eating disorders as well. I do often find if I'm starting to feel like I don't want to eat, and I find that there have been days over the last 2 weeks when I've been particularly bad where I've not eaten anything, or I've just had a banana. And sometimes it's that, make sure I just eat something, whatever it is. I don't so much get like good food and bad food anymore, which I've never believed in anyway. But if I cook myself a really nice meal, I feel 10 times better. Like every single time, no matter what. Even if the recipe goes completely wrong and I've ended up with soup instead of a curry, it makes me that's my biggest self-care thing.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that when I had therapy that my therapist told me was about treating yourself like a plant. So you need food, you need water, and you need oxygen, or like sunlight. So as long as that's for me is like the basics. So I make sure that I'm drinking water. I'm awful for drinking water. I need more people to shout at me to drink water. But drinking water, eating, sensibly, and then either opening the window or getting physically outside every day. And if I don't do those three basics, that's when everything else starts to crumble. And it's just, I'm always conscious of that, because also it's that cliche, isn't it, of like you can't pour from an empty cup. So I can't parent, and I can't do my job, and I can't be in a relationship, and I can't support my friends if I'm completely knackered. So sometimes I felt like not doing it, that basic care, and then it's that thought of like, well, I can't help the people around me, and I can't do what I need to do unless I do this, and then that's the push to make me do it. So I always kind of keep in mind that, like, treat yourself like a plant, which sounds ridiculous, but when you break it down, I think it makes sense. Yeah,
I'm just conscious of the time. I didn't want it to be too long. There's only a couple more things I had on the list, which I think we've covered, was the different types of support, So we've talked a little bit about reaching out to your doctors, therapists. Somebody did ask about medication, which again, if consider it if you want to. I think with that one, people just need to ask questions of their doctor, and if the doctor goes to it as the very first thing, push for a little bit more of a conversation.
I think also with medication, people can think, I mean, it depends on what's going on with you. But with anxiety, like I think some people think you're either on medication or off it. Whereas I have medication in my medicine cabinet that I can take if I'm feeling anxious, but I don't have to. I could take it every day, and there's like no problem with that at all. But I tend to use it these days if I feel like I'm getting bad. So it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to necessarily be like fully on or fully off. The medication that I have is a beta blocker, so it deals with the physical symptoms of anxiety, so it slows my heart rate, with the idea being that if I then have a grip on the physical symptoms, my mental I can then work, because I'm not dealing with like racing heart as well, so I can then work on the mental side of it. So I think it's some people think you're either on or off, and actually if you talk to your doctor, there can be like middle ground routes that you can go down instead, because there shouldn't be any stigma about being on medication. Plenty of people take medication for like diabetes all the time, and that's no big deal, and your brain is the same. But yeah, I would say, like Shah said, like talk to your doctor and see what options there are, and then just decide what's best for you.
And don't feel like you have to agree with the first thing that they offer you. Just ask. And I know it's not just ask, because like we said earlier, it can be a battle at times. But if you go in knowing that there's more than one route you can take, we're all telling you now. Just try and have that conversation.
Yeah.
So would anybody like to discuss resources that they have found helpful?
I actually found a really good one this week that might be helpful. I can't take credit for it. So I was at uni not at uni, I was sat here, but I had university sessions this week, and one of the lectures that we had was on mental health, and the lady that did it, she talked about an app called Hub of Hope that I'd never heard of before, and it's basically, she described it like Tinder but for mental health. But for like, basically what you do is, I've got it here, so it's that bottom, I don't think this is going to show, no. Basically what you do is, yeah, Hub of Hope it's called. I'm trying to show it. You can sort of see it there. What you do is you download it. It's completely free to use and download. You put your postcode in, and then what it does is it finds all of the nearby services that could support you. So it's great if you're waiting on an NHS like wait list or whatever, and you need some short-term help. And when I put it in just to have a look and see how it works, you've got things like all of the local therapists that live, I think, within about a 20-mile radius, but you can set the radius, and also things like your local branch of Mind where you can get help, and other stuff like that. So I just had a quick look the other day, and it looked like a really good thing. So if you're struggling, they also on there, or well, for my area, they had like services where you can text people rather than talking on the phone, and like online services and stuff like that, and also support groups for specific mental health issues. So for example, in my area there's a bipolar support group, which I wouldn't have known about at all because I haven't seen advertised anywhere. So yeah, I thought that was a good one, and it's Hub of Hope. I'll put it on my social media when this is finished.
Yeah, I've just downloaded it,
and it's free. It's really easy to use, so I would recommend that. I thought that was a good
I haven't heard of that, but that sounds really useful, because I'm always really bad at knowing like what there is available.
Yeah. Oh, and I meant to say that everyone that's on the app, everyone that shows up has been vetted previously to make sure that they are like not just like Fred from down the road who wants to chat to people in his front lounge. They're all like professional people. So yeah.
Oh, good. I like that. I'm quite interested to know how many services are near my hometown, because it's so small and isolated.
I was really surprised because I live in the middle of nowhere, and there was a lot. There was quite a lot, and a lot of like I said, specific support groups and stuff. And also like on there was like support groups for people who are caring for people that have got mental health issues as well and stuff like that. So I might just be lucky with my area, because it's obviously a bit of a postcode lottery, but hopefully there might be something useful for people.
I think you covered everything there. I don't think we can add anything else.
Sorry.
We'll find out everything.
I talk too much.
I mean,
Sorry.
Not at all. I personally really like Mind. I found them really helpful.
My boyfriend did this like outdoor activity camping thing like last year, and it was really good. Like they do, I don't know if they're running sessions like that with the pandemic, but they do really interesting things and like different things you never thought would like help, but they do. Like really cool things.
Mind are great.
Yeah.
And there's like their website's amazing. There's so much free information on there as well. And I can't remember. Well, it's been a while since I've used them, but they did have a chat function as well for a while. I'm not sure if that's there at the moment.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But they've got loads of different resources for like, I was looking at their website earlier and I didn't realise how many different resources they had. Like they've got a whole section for like employers about how to recognise and support their employees, which is good. I didn't like see something like that. So, yeah. But
they also have quite a lot on there about supporting somebody else with a mental health issue. So I feel like it'd be really useful if you were struggling and I don't know, your parents or your partner or someone who was supporting you needed help to understand what was going on. So that's you know, it's useful that it's not just for the person that's struggling, but for the people around them as well.
Okay. Let's wrap it up because it's been an hour, and I want to go have cuddles with my sister. Just to finish it off, then, are there any books that you would recommend or that you've really enjoyed that feature mental health representation? It can be either fiction or a self-help, non-fiction memoir. Anything in particular you have found useful?
I think we'll probably have the same one, Char. From research.
I do have it sat next to me. But I personally wasn't going to mention any because I have a whole series on my channel where I talk about books about bipolar. For those interested. She's back. I'll be a couple minutes.
Of course, every single book that I've ever read has now disappeared out of my head.
I'm having the same thought of like, I've never read a book about mental health.
I've read loads.
I know. Nicole's going to kill me if she sees this. No, I think Holly Bourne is one that springs to mind for me, especially Am I Normal Yet, which is about a girl with, well, she's got a couple of diagnoses, but she's got generalized anxiety disorder. I think if that book had been around when I was like 13, 14, I would have felt a whole lot less alone. So that's always one that I recommend. Also because it's YA, so it's quite a good starting point, I think, even for an adult reader. And also, what was the other one I was talking about the other day? The Million Pieces of Nina Gill is also a really good one. I don't tend to read non-fiction about mental health generally, because it sometimes cuts a bit close to the bone. But yeah, I think Holly Bourne in particular, I've read most of her writing now, and in general, I think she has really good mental health rep. But Am I Normal Yet is just one that I really liked. Because
doesn't she have a book about crying in public?
Yes. Yeah, The Places I Cried in Public. Yeah, that's
like
more about gaslighting. It's more about gaslighting, although I think it's handled really well. Yeah, the kids that I work with are going to get sick of me going, read Holly Bourne because she's really good. Yeah, so yeah, I tend to read more fiction rather than non-fiction.
I'll talk about a non-fiction one because I'll let Caris talk about the one that we both like, because I'm going to talk about it on my channel quite a lot coming up, and I don't want to spoil it. But I really like, what's it called? It's Not Okay to Be Blue and Other Lies. Yeah. Of essays, if you want non-fiction, because it's easy enough to just dive in, read a very short chapter or a poem, very short essay about mental health, and again explores all sorts of different types of mental illnesses, very much focused on depression and anxiety, but there are some bipolar, some schizophrenia, some eating disorders, and things like that in there. I think that's a really good one. And like I said, it looks quite chunky, which can be quite intimidating. But because it is essays, you can, just read one or two here or there. You absolutely don't need to read the whole thing.
Yeah,
I actually know someone who wrote one of those essays in that book.
That's cool.
I need to read that and the other one in the feminist.
They're both so good. They're
I
both
have
really
them
good.
both, but I just haven't picked them up because I don't really turn to nonfiction that much either. But yeah, Polly Baum was someone who I used to read like a lot, and I'm always really sort of wary of recommending things that I haven't read for a long time because I'm not sure. I can't really remember them, so I'm glad that she still holds true. One that I used to really like for anxiety is A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sarah Bernard. But again, I read that one quite a long time ago. But from what I remember, it was it made a big impact on me at the time, at least. And the one that Shara and I read recently is called Little and Lion, and it had bipolar rep in it. But it was I just loved so much about it, like that so many groups of people were represented, not just in terms of mental health, but like sexuality and race, religion, so much representation. And I thought it was all done really well. Obviously I don't have the bipolar experience, but from what Shah said, it was done really well.
Yeah, what I like about that one is it's told from it's not told from the point of view of the person with the mental illness, which I think can be quite tough to read at times. It's more observations from another person, which kind of and the way it's depicted is very much, I was reading it like, I know exactly where this is going, I know exactly what that feels like, I know exactly what that's a sign of. And I think it handled it really well. And the main character is Black, Jewish, and bisexual.
Yeah.
That's how exciting it is.
Whoa.
I have never read a character that is
like
has all of those different identities, and every single one of them is explored in the book. And
I think I'm gonna have to read.
Oh, Ashley, it's fascinating. It's amazing.
It's the second time I've heard about
it. They talk about a lot of the Jewish traditions as well. It's like quite a big part of the book. So I really like that one, and I will be making lots of videos on it coming up, as I said, because it was the January book for the books about bipolar book club.
Yeah, I think one other that I've just thought of while you guys were talking, which is non-fiction, is The Stranger on the Bridge by Johnny Benjamin. I read that last year for last year's mental health one, which I'm clearly not going to get invited back to co-host this year after me going, I don't really read that much mental health stuff. But yeah, I read that last year. You have to be in a good place to read it because it's brutal. And in case you guys don't know who he was a guy who stood on one of the bridges in London a few years ago and was going to throw himself off, and a stranger basically talked him down. And it's all about what happened to him, what led up to that moment, and what happened afterwards. And it's really powerful, and his diagnoses are a lot different to mine, but it was more about his experience of being in the medical system and being mentally ill, and kind of talking, the people around him reacting to his diagnosis, and also him in his own brain, and that kind of struggle against your brain that you get sometimes. So yeah, that one was really powerful, but I would just put a warning on it of like, if you're not in a great place, it's probably not going to help you. But if you are in a stronger place, it's definitely worth reading, but it's just very unfiltered. So go careful.
Have you got any, Ashley?
No.
You look like you've been thinking really hard.
I have been thinking really hard, but
you're not come up with any.
No, I just had this like epiphany about something, and my brain is very like if it started thinking about something, it won't stop, and so I just had to let it run its course. And I get like that a lot. But no, I don't have any.
There are a couple in the chat. So Anna has mentioned normal people again, so I don't have to. All the Bright Places I'm considering putting on the Books About Bipolar book club, because my sister has a copy, and while I'm here I can get it, but I've been told it has really bad representation.
Yeah, I read that a few years ago, and I've not heard great things about it since. I can't really remember it, which isn't a great sign for me. But I know I've seen a few people who weren't happy with the rep.
Yeah.
But it might make for an interesting discussion.
Yeah, and I intentionally want to read bad rep in the book club as well, so that I can talk about what I can bad rep be.
Yeah.
The conversation about bad rep is very subjective as well.
Oh yeah.
Because for some people might think it's bad representation because it's like not really their experience with whatever it's talking about, but it might be somebody else's. And as long as it's like bad rep, but also from the point of view of someone who has experienced that, I don't think it is bad rep. Like, it just might not be relatable rep.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with All the Bright Places is I'm not sure its own voices, and I think that's where some people have a problem with it.
Yeah, I've heard that it's not own voices, that it's not actually, it claims to be bipolar, but it's presented as a different mental health. Like the symptoms are completely different, and that it's just treated really badly as like everybody's crazy, but it can be cured by love. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
About that one.
It definitely make for an interesting discussion.
Yeah, definitely, especially with what Anna is saying there about how it opens the conversation for her. So maybe I will use that one. We shall see. Okay, so we'll wrap this up. Thank you everybody for joining. I hope you had some sort of catharsis from it, or
now go and cry. You'll feel better, I promise.
Or write a list.
You can
all cry whilst you're writing the list.
Yeah. However it helps. Also want to say to everyone, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, anyone who's watching this ever, any of you guys who've joined, if you ever need to talk, my DMs are open for you. I will sit and chat to you no matter what. Might take me a bit of time to say something if I'm not in a good place myself, but we'll always be there if somebody needs someone to talk to. So never feel like you're alone, and I hope that this lockdown gets a bit better for everybody, and I can't wait to see humans again.
Yay.
Yay. Oh, I don't know, it might be too overwhelming by the time we get to it. I'll be like, no, I'll go back into isolation now.
I can't wait.
All right, I'll end this now then. All right, take care everybody.
And you, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.